10 seconds to air.
10 seconds.
Live from Lincoln Center, welcome to another in our series of live performances from the stages of Lincoln Center for the Performing Arts in New York City. I'm Fred Child. As you listen to our featured piece tonight, you might find yourself saying, I can't believe it's Schoenberg. Almost 100 years after Arnold Schoenberg devised the 12-tone technique of musical composition, we'll be hearing a gorgeous work he wrote before he set the world of music on its ear, his lush and romantic Verklarte Nacht, Transfigured Night. We'll hear it performed by the Chamber Music Society of Lincoln Center in our first hour. After the Schoenberg, we're trying something new tonight. The second hour of this concert will be live from Lincoln Center on the internet. After the performance of Transfigured Night, we'll sign off the air, but our cameras will continue rolling as the Chamber Music Society plays another delectable romantic work for strings, the Sextet No. 2 by Brahms. You can see and hear the Brahms online in our second hour tonight at pbs.org. We're very pleased to have composer and conductor Rob Capello with us as our guide and commentator for Transfigured Night. Before the performance, he'll show us why this hauntingly beautiful piece is among the last great romantic compositions and something we might not expect from Arnold Schoenberg. Rob Capello and the Chamber Music Society of Lincoln Center will be coming to you live tonight from Lincoln Center's Kaplan Penthouse, looking out across the Hudson River and Midtown Manhattan. And it looks like we're just about ready to start. Taking the stage now are the Chamber Music Society's violists, Teng Lee and David Kim, cellists Priscilla Lee and David Finkel, and violinists Aaron Keefe and Arno Sussman. By the way, David Finkel, along with his wife, pianist Wu Han, is co-artistic director of the Chamber Music Society of Lincoln Center. And here now is our commentator, Rob Capello.
To most people, the name Arnold Schoenberg is almost synonymous with the 12-tone system of composition and some of the most challengingly difficult atonal music of the 20th century. Music like this excerpt from his fourth string quartet. Amazingly enough, however, he began his career by writing some of the most quintessentially romantic music ever composed, like the music we're going to hear tonight, the exquisite music of Verklarte Nacht. The 25-year-old Schoenberg wrote Verklarte Nacht in a 3-week burst of inspiration in September of 1899. And the original sextet version, the version we're performing tonight, is described on the title page as, quote, after a poem by Richard Damel. What that means, the unique way in which the music of this piece is related to Damel's poem, is what tonight's program is all about. The poem, Verklarte Nacht, Transfigured Night, is in 5 stanzas and tells the story of a woman walking in the woods with her lover, who confesses that she's pregnant with the child of another man. The lover comforts her, forgives her, and ultimately accepts the child as his own. So, how does Schoenberg turn all of this into music? Schoenberg in no way sets Damel's entire poem to music line by line, though the 5 verses clearly structure the piece as a whole, but instead sets his subjective reactions to the poem. When an image in the poem strikes him, he sets it to music and develops it, while completely ignoring other lines and passages. He doesn't so much set the action of the poem to music as the nature setting in which it takes place and the emotions that the scene creates. Schoenberg's music tends to respond directly to the images that open each stanza, and the very first evocative notes of the piece come right out of the text. The poem begins, 2 people are walking through the bare, cold woods. And the repeated Ds in cello and viola are the 2 people walking. Here's how the piece begins. 2 people walking. Step. Step. The melody is the bare, cold woods. Bare octaves. No harmony. no warmth. The scale repeats. Now doubled slightly higher by the viola, gradually adding warmth, opening up the space of the piece. Like nearly every idea in the piece, it repeats. Then the space opens further with the same notes an octave higher in the violins. The idea fluidly alters its shape, but always over the repeated Ds of two people walking. After all the scales going down, a tiny leap up is a major event, causing the cello to change notes from D for the first time. It repeats, the tiny leap, that wonderful blur in the cello. Then to depict the couple gazing at the moon, the first violin floats into the stratosphere. That trill is the flickering moonlight. It flickers again. Bare cold woods changes shape and becomes brighter, more major, as the moonlight brings more light to the idea. Nature transfigures the musical motive. Great composers don't set words to music. They set the emotions behind the words. And that's exactly how Schoenberg approaches Daiml's poem. As the woman's anguish begins to enter the scene, the harmonic world changes from the world of nature and moonlight to the interior landscape of her mind. In the poem, the woman simply starts speaking in verse 2, preceded by the words, quote, "A woman's voice speaks." But for Schoenberg, she can't simply start speaking. He has to compose her state of mind before she can actually speak. Listen to how her growing agitation and anguish transform the music of Bare Cold Woods. The motive shortened to just 3 notes. It gets louder. Harmony gets more agitated. Anguish. The motive lower in the viola and cello, even more anguished. The cello's fast notes to viola increases the anguish even more. Even that pause isn't just a musical pause, it's her internal pause, a kind of gathering before speaking. Should I speak? Should I confess? And then 2 bars of her sadness over it all. Remember these poignant bars for later. The viola. Then lower. And then a single chord. That chord brings her into action, and everything combines musically to convey her agitation at what she has to say. The cello transforms Bare Cold Woods, places it squarely on the beat to show her resolve, then reduces it to its first 3 notes, repeated, then turned into an accented march-like scale with an ending. On top of this, violin 1 and viola 1 are adding 2 layers of psychological confusion to depict her confused thoughts racing together. And one more key thing. One of the most important ingredients in this piece that conveys so much of its musical energy is actually a simple musical device, tremolo. It's one of the most distinctive sounds of the piece, a kind of musical equivalent for Schoenberg's restless energy, and you'll hear it everywhere in this passage and in the piece. Bare Cold Woods. Viola sigh. Tremolo. Viola sigh again. Bare Cold Woods shortened. The music speeds up. The march-like scale. Hysterical first violin swoops.